Yu-Gi-Oh is a very expensive game, especially in this format, but it does not have to be. So here I have brought 5 different budget decks, all below the price point of about $100. So not especially the cheapest. However, they are at a price point where all the decks I need to be showing are quite competent and can definitely hold their own in the current competitive landscape. Now, I'm not going to be claiming that these decks are amazing by any stretch of the imagination, or that they're necessarily top tier. However, what I am saying is you can take them to locals and you can definitely get a win or two, or even top the locals with the list that I am providing. Starting off our budget list at 7267, we have our first one, Agents. This is a deck that we actually went over on stream. This deck is very interesting. It's based off this old archetype called the Agents. However, it did recently get some new support cards, as well as some cards that are now off the ban list that they can play around with. So let me go down the card by card and let me know what I think the deck can do, or what I hope the deck can do. We are on triple the Agent of Mystery Earth. This is our main starter. On normal, it's to add another agent from deck to hand, or if Sanctuary of the Sky is on board, we can add a Master Hyperion instead. This card is very good. Adding an agent allows us to grab extendies, so more extendies are great. We're on a triple Agent of Creation Venus. You can pay 500 life points, special summon a Mystical Shine Ball from our hand or deck. That isn't a once per turn, so it does allow us to get more balls on board. And then let's go to the next cards. The 3 balls. We're balling. You already know. Good thing with Earth is a tuner and the balls are non-tuners. So in our basic combo, we want to have Earth and Venus on field. So ideally, we are able to use the ball and the Earth to go into some sort of Synchro 4. Next, we're on double Agent of Destruction Venus. This is a retrain. You can banish 1 Creation Venus from our graveyard to special summon it from our hand. And then we can pay life in multiples of 500. For every 500 paid, we get to target a Mystical Shine Ball that's banished from the graveyard and special summon it. Put it on the bottom when it leaves the field. But it is a hard once per turn, and you can only use 1 effect per turn. So you can only use either the effect to special summon the balls or the effect to special summon the Venus. So you do kind of have to weigh your options there. It's another tuner. It's a level 3 tuner, and it is another way to banish a card. So ideally, we want to be opening Earth and either Venus, or Earth and the Evil Venus. We want to open one or the other. So, because they are part of the same combo in a sense. We're on a triple the Agent of Life Neptune. We can pitch it to special summon an agent from our hand or graveyard, except for itself. Or if Sanctuary is on the field, we can special summon a Hyperion instead, and either player can tribute the monster that we did summon until the end of our opponent's turn. If this card is banished, we can add 1 Sanctuary in the Sky from our deck to our hand. Very powerful effect. We just need to banish it. So we are on triple Neptune. Stats are 0-600, which is actually relevant, and we'll get to it a little bit later. We're on triple Uranus, or Uranus. We are, if Sanctuary in the Sky is on field, we can do a special summon from our hand, and then once per turn, we can just Foolish an agent from deck to graveyard, and then change the level of this card to the level of the card that we've sent. Really great card in this deck. It's a Foolish. It's a free special summon. It's not a once per turn for either of those effects. So as long as we got Uranus, we can keep going. We're on the Master Hyperion, as well as 1 Majesty Hyperion. Master Hyperion allowing it to special summon it by banishing an agent from our hand, field, or graveyard. This is a way that we can trigger our Neptune in order to get the Sanctuary in the Sky. And then we can banish 1 Light Fairy from our graveyard, target 1 card on field, and destroy that target. While Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, we can activate it twice. And then Majesty Hyperion is very similar, same with the Silent Condition, and instead of popping cards on field, it shuffles cards, banishes cards from the graveyard. So that's the main difference there. We're on 1 copy of Ava. If it's sent to the graveyard, we can banish up to 2 other Light Fairies from our field and graveyard, and then add the same number of level 2 or lower Light Fairies with different names from our deck to our hand, except for itself. Great effect. And then we're on 1 Nemesis Corridor in order to make Colossus, because we can search it off of Cupid Pitch. We can search any monster with 600 defense. But guess what? Neptune also has 600 defense, so it doesn't just serve the purpose of being a silly little Colossus enabler, but Pitch can also just add Neptune as well. It is a Light Fairy, so we can use it for our Ava stuff. Like, it's a Light Fairy, it's in theme. We're on triple Sacred Waters in the Sky. We can either activate a Sanctuary in the Sky straight from deck, or add a monster that mentions Sanctuary in the Sky from deck to hand. And then if we have Sanctuary in the Sky, or in field, or in either graveyard, we get to gain life points for each Hyperion and agent that we control. And if a monster we control that mentions Sanctuary in the Sky would be destroyed in battle, we can banish this card from our graveyard instead. Really great card, it's Rhoda plus a lot more, so we are playing 3 copies. We're on 1 Sanctum of Parshet. This is also Sanctuary in the Sky while on field or grave. Fairy monsters on the field get 300 and 300. Set spells and traps can't be destroyed by card effects, and neither player can target them with card effects. And once per turn, you can target 3 fairies or counter traps with different names in your graveyard and put them on top of your deck in any order. This is a good card, especially for our end board, just because it protects our back row as well as allowing us to recycle cards when need be. So we are just playing the 1 copy since it's super tutorable, as well as 3 copies of the aforementioned Sanctuary in the Sky. We need it on field to get certain beneficial effects, so we are just playing 3 to guarantee we see it, as well as 1 Fallen Sanctuary. When it's activated, we can set 1 Sanctuary in the Sky or 1 spell that mentions it straight from deck to field, and this card's name becomes Sanctuary in the Sky while in field or in graveyard. You can banish 1 fairy monster from your graveyard, target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, and it gets effects until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. So this card does a lot in 1 card. It both activates Sanctuary in the Sky, or rather sets it, or a card that mentions it, so it could be anything else, like even Sacred Waters in the Sky, so we can even grab a starter. It itself is Sanctuary in the Sky will face up, and then it's also a negate. Really great card all around. It's searchable, so we are playing 1 of it. We're on 1 Divine Punishment. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while Sanctuary in the Sky is on field, negate the activation if you destroy it. This is another target off of Fallen Sanctuary. It's just a counter trap negate. Really good. We're also on 1 Light of Judgment. This is, again, these are all tutorable because they mention Sanctuary in the Sky. If Sanctuary in the Sky is on field, we can pitch a light monster to the graveyard and apply 1 of the effects, either looking at your opponent's hand and pitching a card from their hand, or sending a card your opponent controls to the graveyard. So it's either Dingirsu, non-targeting send, or it's Confiscation, where we get to rip a card out of our opponent's hand. So I think this is quite a strong card, and I'm just playing the one of it. And then for hand traps, we're on triple Infinite Impermanence, triple Herald of Orange Light, since we are playing such a high quantity of fairies. So this is just a really good hand trap in this deck. 2 triple Tactics Talents for hand traps, and then 1 Called by the Grave. That's it for our main deck, a nice solid $54 and 40 cards exactly. We're on 1 IP Masquerena, double Protector of the Agent's Moon. Needs 2 fairies. If link summon, we get to send a Sanctuary in the Sky or a card that mentions it from deck to graveyard. And then it has an ability to contribute a fairy, target a card your opponent controls, and destroy it. Good card, we're playing 2 of it. We're on 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Celestial Night Lord Parshath, able to pitch a card to add to Sanctuary in the Sky or a card that mentions it. This can also add fairies, so if we really wanted to, we could play Archlord Christie. However, I am choosing to opt out of that. And then we're on 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. For Synchros, we're on Cupid Pitch, which we make with Earth plus Shine Ball, and then can lower its level by 2. So then we can go into another Shine Ball to send it to graveyard to make it, again, the Heralds of the Arclight, and then trigger the Cupid Pitch to then add the Nemesis Corridor. You know, that's the basic line to get to Colossus plus Arclight, so negate and mistake. We're on double Executor of the Underworld Pluto. It is a 5 Fairy Synchro Tuner effect. Once per turn, we can banish 1 monster from our graveyard, target an effect monster on the field, change it to face down fence position. This is a quick effect as Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in the graveyard. We can banish this card from our graveyard, add 1 Sanctuary in the Sky from our deck to our hand, and we can only use each effect of Pluto once per turn. This card is very good. Book of Moon effects are very strong, especially right now, as well as the effect to add Sanctuary in the Sky is just so strong, so we are just playing 2 of it, so we can make it multiple times. We're also running 1 FA Dawn Dragster, so we can have a spell negate, and once we get to a 7 Synchro. 1 Master for the Hyperion. This allows us to copy the effects of agents, which is really powerful, so we are playing the 1 of it. And then 1 Chungus, because we can make 10s and we do tend to banish stuff, so this seems like a pretty alright card, as well as the 1 copy of Thunder Dragon Colossus. This deck is very interesting. It's a very different style of deck than any other deck. It like combos, but also wants to control. It can play super cool synchro plays. I think this deck is just very interesting in general. There's probably a different way of running it that is slightly better. However, I think this build is also quite good and does end on its mainline combo more of the time than not. So let's move on to our next budget deck. Next up, we are on Ice Barrier. This is an archetype that basically got a lot of support somewhat recently. A lot of the support isn't necessarily the cheapest, so if you do see our price tag, we are at $99.75, quartered under $100, but I got it there. And so let's go over the Ice Barrier deck. This is a synchro strategy from Dual Terminal. However, it got more recent support to more modernize it. So now we basically play only the new cards and only a handful of the old ones. So I'm gonna stop yapping. Let's get into the profile. Starting off, we're on Triple Revealer of the Ice Barrier. We'll control another Ice Barrier monster. Your opponent cannot tribute monsters. All the Ice Barriers will have like some sort of floodgate effect on them for the most part. The main effect on this card, though, is we can pitch a card, special summon an Ice Barrier Tuner from our deck, and we can't special the rest of the turn except for water monsters. Or if we discard a card or send a card from our hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect, we can banish this card from our graveyard instead of one of those cards. Great effect on this card. This is the best starter in the deck, and we are playing 3 of it. 3 Curious Georgius, Swordsman of the Ice Barrier, Winged Beast Tuner effect. While you control an Ice Barrier, another Ice Barrier, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters in the graveyard. Little Necro Valley-esque effect. Great card, at least for that stun effect. You can use each of the following effects of Curious George once per turn. Once per turn, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. And if this card is normal or special, we can special summon one level 5 or lower Ice Barrier from our hand or graveyard. Great actual effect on this card, being a double extendee, is amazing. And we are on a triple Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier. Typically, most builds are not playing 3 of it. However, I do always want to be seeing it. But it is probably worth it to consider cutting this down to 2. But if you were to cut it down to 2, you would most likely have to replace it with Swap Frog, which is a pretty penny at this moment. So in order to get this deck budget, we are just playing 3 Mirror Mage, because we want to see it in our opening hand so we can discard it off a Revealer of the Ice Barrier. Mirror Mage reads, we contribute one another effect monster, special summon up to 3 Ice Barrier tokens, and if you do increase this card's level by that number of monsters, you can special summon for the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for Water Synchros. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one of your Ice Barrier monsters, cards that's either banished or in your deck to your hand, except for Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier. So if sent to the graveyard, it's reinforcement of the army for any Ice Barrier card for the most part, and on field, it is a free Synchro 8, I believe. So this card is very good, and we are playing 3 copies of it. And next we are playing 2 copies of General Wayne of the Ice Barrier. Spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are banished instead. It's pretty alright against some decks like Pendulum or Sky Strikers. You can only use each of the following effects of General Wayne once per turn. If your opponent controls a monster and you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add an Ice Barrier spell trap from deck to hand. This card's a lot better if we are going second. However, this deck really sucks at going second, so we are just playing 2 just to shore up those weaknesses in a sense. We're on double speaker for the Ice Barrier. If we control another Ice Barrier monster, defense position monsters your opponent controls cannot change their battle positions. You can use each of the following effects as speaker of the Ice Barriers once per turn. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can banish this from your graveyard, special summon 1 Ice Barrier token. It's just an extender in both respects, and it is a non-tuner. A lot of stuff in this deck are actually tuners. Like Georgius is a tuner, Mirror Mage is a tuner, Hexa is a tuner. So we do play a lot of tuners, so we need more non-tuners at a lower level, if that makes sense. Speaking of Hexa, we're on 1 Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier. When you control another Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. During your main phase, you can send 1 level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster's until the end of the turn. Again, we send Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier if we have not already sent that card, so really good card effect on this. And I believe if we summon this off Revealer, it is kind of like a full combo of sorts. We're on 1 Warlock of the Ice Barrier for our end board. While you control another Ice Barrier monsters, it is an anti-spell fragrance. And then General Raiho, if when your opponent's monster activates an effect on field that it resolves, they must discard a card or the effect is negated at their choice, so it drains them of resources or negates their effects. So great effect on these 2. And we want to be special summoning these off of Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain, during our opponent's turn. We are on triple Medallion of the Ice Barrier. This is quite literally just reinforcement of the army for any Ice Barrier monster. We're on double Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. When this card is activated, we can target a level 4 or lower Ice Barrier in our graveyard and special summon it. And then while we control 3 more Ice Barriers, our Ice Barrier monsters are unaffected by the activated effects of monster decks. Monsters are special summoned from our opponent's extra deck. So interesting little protection effect there, but otherwise it is just an extender. And then for Ice Barrier spells traps, we're on 1 Ice Barrier itself. It's like a neat little battle trick specifically for Tempai, but it's also reinforcement of the army of sorts from a graveyard for our high level Ice Barrier cards, as well as 1 Frozen Domain of the Ice Barrier. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to activation of your Ice Barrier monster effects. And then we can return to the hand or shuffle into deck 1 Ice Barrier monster we control, and then place 1 card from our hand or field, or from the field or either graveyard, on the bottom of the deck, and you can use each effective Frozen Domain of the Ice Barrier once per turn. So bottom of the deck is brutal. That is the tier condition where you get to put it on the bottom. But Frozen Domain basically means they can't even respond to that. And then once per turn, your end phase, reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names in your extra deck, or destroy this card. So it barely has a downside too. You just need to not use up all your Ice Barriers. So we are just playing the 1 copy just because it's searchable. We're on triple Ice Jade Brand A green. We can pitch another Ice Jade or Water Monster to special summon this from our hand. And then on, if we did do that, we do get to also summon a level 3 non-tuner token, which then we can use to immediately make a level 10 Synchro, being Lancia Ancestral Dragon the Ice Mountain, or Ice Jade Gimmer E green, or Chungus once more. We're on one Foolish Burial in order to send Mirror Mage or potentially Speaker if we already have a way to send Mirror Mage. And then for hand traps, we are on triple Ghost Motor and Moonlit Chill, triple Effect Veiler, one Skull Meister, triple Infinite Impermanence, and then for hand trap prevention, we're on double Triple Tactics and one Called by the Grave. In our extra deck, we're on double Marincess Cruel Anemone to bring back monsters from our graveyard, one Totally Awesome to pair with Bahamut Shark, as well as one Abyss Dweller. Something we can set up pretty early on is Revealer plus Speaker. We can do that, so that's a neat little thing that we are able to do. We are on one Brainiac Dragon the Ice Barrier, able to pitch cards to bounce cards. One Coral Dragon, able to pitch cards to pop cards. Or if it's sent to the graveyard, we get to immediately draw a card for card advantage reasons. One Dragite, which is spell negations if we have waters in our graveyard. One Trishula, which is banish 3, one from field, one from grave, one from opponent's hand. It's just kind of a pain to summon, but we can kind of cheat it out, but not really. One Chungus, one A green, being able to banish stuff our opponent activates on field. Two Lancia, reading every time your opponent special summons a monster. We get to special summon an Ice Barrier straight from our deck or extra deck, and that is a twice per turn. So really powerful effect there. And if your opponent chooses to out this card, we get to special summon an Ice Barrier Synchro monster from our extra deck, treated as a Synchro summon. So we can either get New Trish, which we are playing one of, or Old Trish. New Trish is a little bit worse. However, it floats into Old Trish, so it is completely fine. And then last card in the deck, if we do not get attribute locked, is Psychic and Punisher, just for a little funny haha, but probably what's better is going to be just another Ice Barrier card instead. But that's going to be about it for this second deck. Now let us move on to our third budget deck. Coming in at third, I was actually very surprised to find out this was budget. We are on Ragnarika Naturia. Ragnarika Naturia is very interesting, utilizing the new Ragnarika cards, which benefit plants, insects, and reptiles. The Naturias primarily being plants and insects. The Naturia is allowing the Ragnarikas to actually have some form of interaction with negation with Horneedle, Sunflower, and Bane, and the ability to synchro summon into Beast, Barkion, Landois, and giving the deck a little bit more of an ability to summon Diabolantis the Menacing Mantis, as well as potentially making even an Exterio. So that's enough yapping on what I hope this deck can do. Let's get to the card by card, and let's see what these cards themselves actually do. Starting off, we're on triple Ragnarika Evil Seed. You can special summon this card by sending an insect, plant, or reptile from your hand to the graveyard. You can only summon it once per turn that way. If no more special summon, we can add to your hand up to 2 different Ragnarika cards that are of yours that are banished or in your deck, except for itself, and then banish 1 card from your hand. And also, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn, except for insects, plants, or reptiles. It is a mouthful of a card, but it is quite a good card. It's a 0/0 level 1 Earth plant. However, this card is incredible in the deck. Reinforcement of the army for 2, as well as banishing card is just a minor minor cost to the card, as well as we can banish the cards that we're adding. So, as if you saw that it can also grab stuff from banishment, this deck does use banishment as like a third hand, so it doesn't actually hurt too much to banish cards. We're on triple Ragnarika Wicked Butterfly. You can pitch a card, special summon an insect, plant, or reptile from our hand. If this card is banished from our hand or graveyard, we can draw cards during the end phase of its turn, equal to the number of different monster types amongst the monsters we control, insect, plants, and reptiles. We can draw up to 3 during the end phase. Ideally, we're going to be drawing at least 2, though. And then we can use each effective butterfly once per turn. So it's an extender of a different insect, plant, or reptile from your hand, which is really strong, especially for the Naturia cards, as well as it's able to draw you into non-engine at the end of the turn based on how many cards you have of engine on field, which is really great. We're on double Ragnarika Samurai Beetle. We can special summon this from our hand by placing one of our banished insects, plants, or reptiles on the bottom of our main deck. We can only summon it once per turn that way. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a material for Ragnarika Link, we can target 1 level 4 lower insect, plant, or reptile in our graveyard except for itself and special summon it in defense. Really great. Being able to bring back anything is very strong, and being able to special summon itself by recycling your banished material just kind of proves that I was meaning what I said at the Ragnarika Evil Seed. We can just use those as resources later on. And then we're on one of the bad one, Ragnarika Armored Lizard. We can special summon this card from our hand by banishing one insect, plant, or reptile from our graveyard. We can only special summon this card once per turn that way. We can pitch one insect, plant, or reptile monster, target one face-up monster our opponent controls, except an insect, plant, or reptile, and bounce it to their hand. Really great for outing cards like Winda and stuff. So this is just an alright card. It's also a level 4 reptile, so it's pretty searchable in this deck, so we are just playing the one copy of it. We're on triple copies of Ragnarok and Bloom. Insect, plants, and reptiles on field gain 300 and 300, and all others lose 300. You can activate the effects, one of these effects per turn. You can add a Ragnarika from deck to your hand and then pitch a card, or special summon a Ragnarika from our hand, graveyard, or banishment in defense position. More than likely, you're going to be using that secondary effect just to get an extra extender. However, if we need to grab Evil Seed, we can also do that. And then one of the searchable Hunting Dance, which is kind of like our Icarus attack, allowing us to pop cards our opponent controls up to a number of different monster types amongst link monsters we control, insect, plant, or reptile. And then it has a floating effect in graveyard. For our Naturias, we're on triple Naturia Camellia. If this card's no more special, we can send a Naturia from our deck to the graveyard. If we attribute a monster to activate a Naturia monster's effect, we can send the top 2 cards of our deck to the graveyard instead. Really powerful effect on that. If your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon one Naturia from your graveyard, and you can use each effect of Camellia once per turn. So we can ideally want to be ending on this card because it both replaces the main cost of our Naturia negations, as well as bringing back stuff as your opponent performs actions. So this is a really powerful 3 of in the deck. And this is a great card to be special summoning off of Wicked Butterfly, especially if you've already used our normal. We are on triple Naturia Mole Cricket. During the main phase quick effect, you can tribute this card, special summon one Naturia monster from our deck, or special summon up to 2 Naturia monsters if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on field, even if it's tied. If your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, or you special summon a Naturia monster from the extra deck while this card's in your graveyard, we can special summon this card, and we can use each effect of Mole Cricket once per turn. Really crazy effect. Being able to tutor for either 1 or 2 out of deck is insane, as well as being able to just constantly keep recurring is very powerful, so we are playing 3 copies of it. We're on 1 Naturia Horneedle. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can tribute a face-up Naturia monster you control, except for this card, to destroy the special summon monster. Powerful effect. 1 Naturia Sunflower. When your opponent's monster effect is activated, quick effect, we can tribute a Naturia and this card to negate the activation if you destroy that card. And then Vayne is the same thing for spells and traps. Keep in mind, with Camellia, we don't have to be tributing 2 to activate those effects. We just get, rather for Sunflower, you attribute 1 and itself, as well as our Naturia Vayne. However, Horde Needle just needs us to tribute 1 other face-up Naturia, except for this card, so. However, because Camellia can replace that tributing effect with just milling 2, you can use the Sunflower multiple times, which is incredibly powerful, as well as the Vayne. We're on triple Naturia Blessing. We can either special summon a Naturia from our hand or graveyard, or immediately after this effect resolves, special summon a Synchro monster using 2 monsters you control as material, including a Naturia monster. Or we can fusion summon a fusion monster from our extra deck using monsters we control as materials, including a Naturia monster. If you notice, there isn't a once per turn, so this is a monster reborn, like, repeatedly, and as well as being able to quick Synchro and quick fusion is interesting, but most of the time this is just here as a monster reborn. We're on 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods in order to send Naturia Sacred Tree. If this card's sent to the graveyard, we can add 1 Naturia card from our deck to our hand, except for itself, and we can use one of the following effects of Sacred Tree per turn, and we'll only once that turn. We can tribute 1 Earth Insect monster, special summon 1 level 4 lower Earth Plant from our deck. We can tribute 1 Earth Plant to special summon 1 level 4 lower Earth Insect. So it lets us trade out cards. It's not the best effect, however, the main thing is we want to do with it is send it to the graveyard, so it's just here to search another card for specifically our Naturias. For our generic extenders, we're an insect, plant, reptile deck, so we can just play generic extenders. We're on 1 Beetrooper Assault Roller, able to banish an insect from our graveyard to special summon itself. 1 Reptilian Coddle, able to be searched off of King of the Feral Imps, and we're just special summon itself because we control King of the Feral Imps, and it's a level 4 tuner. 1 Serpentine Princess. This deck is designed with Serpentine Princess in mind, so it would be a little bit of a disgrace not to play at least 1 copy. It's not the best in this deck specifically, but I think it's very funny. If this face-up card is shuffled into your deck, you can special summon level 3 or lower card from our deck. Really powerful, able to grab Mole Cricket, able to grab Lone Fire Blossom, any of our Ragnarikas that are kind of like worth it we can grab, so powerful card effect there. We're on 1 Kyclos, the Circular Sprite, and 1 Variant, the Circular Sorcerer. This is like a self-contained combo where you can go Cyclos to add Variant. Variant will then in turn special summon itself, and then we can go into a Synchro to make Circle the Fairies for an additional normal summon. Or if we have the right star count, we can even make a Diablantis. And then we're on double Lone Fire Blossom. This is for a Jasmine play. I like Blown Fire a lot because it allows us to pivot into whatever we want. We can either pivot into the Ragnarikas or pivot into the Naturias, so I think it is quite a strong card, as well as the 1-for-1 to grab Ragnarika Evil Seed or Naturia Mole Cricket. We are on 1 copy of Foolish Burial, 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talents, and 1 copy of Called by the Grave to round it out. We're on 2 copies of Ragnarika Skeletal Soldier. This can reborn Ragnarikas from our graveyard, and consider all of these lock us into insect, plants, and reptiles. And we can bring back any of our Ragnarika links, these will all have the same text, by putting back 1 insect, plant, or reptile from our field to our deck. So this is how we trigger our Serpentine Princess. So we're on 2 of this. 1 Aromatherapy Jasmine, we contribute a card at points 2 to summon a plant from our deck, very powerful. And if we gain life points, we are able to add a plant from deck to hand, but that is a hard once per turn for that second effect. We're on 1 Ragnarika Mantis Monk, allowing us to banish an insect, plant, or reptile, banish 2 to add a Ragnarika Trap. This is why we're running the 1 Hunting Dance. We're on 1 Ragnarika Selene Snapper. We can banish up to 2 monsters from our graveyard, target them any spell and traps your opponent controls, and destroy them. So really, really powerful other effect for this one, being able to pop back row, and this one's a new one, so before this deck didn't really have too much back row hate, so this is a very welcome change. 1 Chain Coils, and these 2+ monsters, so it's a length 4 total. If your opponent activates a monster effect, except during the damage step, you can activate this effect. Neither player can activate effects of monsters in the hand for this turn. So just a nice little like lingering floodgate-like effect where it stops in-hand effects, so it's really good against certain decks. 1 Bangalancer the Resurgence, since we are running a large amount of plants, so this is we're capable of making this, especially in terms of Jasmine plays. And then 1 Ragnarika Stag Sovereign, if it's special summoned, if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's deck and or extra deck, except during the damage step, we can pop 2 monsters on the field. Really interesting effect. It's very interesting how all the Ragnarikas are kind of not really proactive, but reactive in a sense. So I think that was a very interesting design decision that Konami made on their part. We're on 1 King of the Feral Imps that can search any reptile from deck to hand. 1 Naturia Beast, which is infinite spell negates, which is very fair. 1 Naturi Barkion, which is theoretically a lot of trap negates, but in all reality, it's probably going to be infinite for your opponent's purposes. 1 Circle the Fairies, that allows us to additionally normal summon an insect or a plant, and also can also gain us life points in a jiffy for our Jasmine, which is very interesting. 1 Landoise, when this card is faced on the field, we can send a spell card from our hand to the graveyard to negate the activation effect monster's effect and destroy it. So it is the one missing piece of Naturia plays. It is not that good because we need to pitch spells specifically. However, we're just playing it for the fun factor, I guess. 1 Diablantis the Menacing Mantis, allowing us to Foolish Burial plants or insects based on the number of materials used to make it. And 1 Naturia Exterio, needing Naturi Beast and Barkion. When any spell or trap is activated, we can banish a card from our graveyard, send the top card of our deck to the graveyard, and then negate it and destroy it. So this one quite literally is almost infinite negates for spells and traps. So this deck is very interesting. I think this is the best version of Ragnarika just because we actually make an end board that like interacts with our opponent in a meaningful way with the Naturia cards. So I believe this is probably the best way to be playing the deck, and I'm very surprised at how cheap it is given how high rarity the Ragnarikas are, with Evil Seed being a secret, with Bloom being a secret, with our Stag Sovereign being an ultra. Very surprising, but good deck nonetheless. 97.73, not above 100. Now let's move on to our next deck. 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, so our next deck is going to be Valmonica, coming in at 99.74. This deck, I actually had to replace a card right before recording this portion. I'm going to be up front. The price of the card changed overnight. Bagusiga became another like 10 cents, which pushed it just over the limit, so I did decide to replace Bagusiga with Castel for just another like piece of removal. But this is a very interesting rank 4 strategy that revolves around like counters on scales, which is very interesting. This deck is very adept at OTKing as well as kind of providing a very interesting control loop. So I think this deck is a very fun and interesting deck, and I'm very surprised that it's below 100, especially given that none of the cards have really received a reprint of any kind as of right now. So starting off our list, we're on triple Cellatrix Valmonica. While we control a monster, except for itself, our opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. You can use each of the following effects of it once per turn. If it's normal or pen summoned, we get to add a Valmonica card from deck to hand except for itself. And if this card is sent to the graveyard and you have 2 Valmonica cards in our pen zones, we get to just add it straight back from graveyard to our hand. So a starter that re-adds itself, very powerful. So we are playing 3 copies of it. We're on triple of the low scale Angelo Valmonica and triple the high scale Demono Valmonica. These cards allow us to copy Valmonica effects in the graveyard while they're face up on field, and then they collect counters while they're not face up on while they're on scales rather. So every time we gain life, we get counters on this one, and whenever we lose life, we get counters on this one, which is really, really powerful. The Angelo also allows us, once per turn, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, we can immediately, after this effect resolves, to link summon a Valmonica Link monster, kind of catching our opponents by surprise if they haven't read our full cards. So these cards are both very powerful. Angelo able to copy the life point gaining effects of our spells in graveyard, while Demono can copy the effect, the life point loss effects, and you'll see what I mean in a moment when I cover this next card. Triple copies of Valmonica Skelta. You can apply one of these effects unless you have a Valmonica card in your pen zone. Your opponent gets to choose, so we always want to be activating these cards only when we have full scales. So we can either gain 500, place 1 card from our hand on the bottom of the deck to draw 2, or take 500 to add a Valmonica spell trap from deck to hand except for itself. So you can see what I mean where there's 2 varying effects. We can either draw 2 and kind of gamble a little bit, or we can get a specific card that we need. Run triple Invitare. We can either special summon a Valmonica from our deck, and for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you can't activate the effects of monsters on field except for Valmonicas. Or if we control a non-pendulum Valmonica monster, take 2 Valmonica Pendulum monsters with different names from deck and add 1 to hand and the other 1 to face up extra. So kind of like a little bit of it's a weird version of like Electromite for this deck, I think. So I think this card's really cool. The fact that it's a quick effect means it's very flexible too. We're on triple Valmonica Agathocacological Voice. I think I got that one right on the second try. If this card's activated, we can add a Valmonica monster from deck to hand. If this card's in our pen zone if a card in our pen zone has a 3rd counter placed on it, we can target a monster our opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, which is a very cute effect, especially since we can gain life during our opponent's turn or lose life during our opponent's turn. And we can only use this effect of this card once per turn, and we can only activate 1 of this card per turn. 1 terraforming, so we're playing 4 copies of it. 2 copies of Disharmonia. We can either gain 500, add a banished Valmonica card from banished to hand, or take 500 to add 1 from graveyard to hand. Powerful effect. And 1 copy of Versare, which we can either gain 500 to excavate cards from the top of our deck until we excavate a Valmonica and adding it to hand, or take 500 to foolish a Valmonica card from deck to grave. And for traps, we're on Chosen Melody. We can either gain 500 for the rest of the turn, they can't target our Valmonica monsters and card effects, or take 500 and negate the effects of 1 effect monster our opponent controls until end phase, non-targeting, which is really interesting. 1 copy of Valmonica Followed Rhythm. We can gain 500 to pop a spell trap on field, or take 500 to bounce a monster on field to hand, so 2 different forms of removal there. And then 1 copy of Valmonica Creations. This is a new card, so we might not include it in future builds. But while you have 6 or more resonance counters on your field, Valmonica linked monsters you control gain 1200 attack. You can use each of the following effects of Valmonica Creation once per turn. Your opponent can special summon monsters. If your opponent special summons a monster/monsters, you can immediately after this effect resolves, link summon 1 Valmonica Link monster. If this card is sent from the hand or field at the graveyard, you can place resonance counters on 1 card in your pen zone, so you can place resonance counters on, so it has 3 counters exactly. So, neat little effect. It's worded very strangely, but I think it is an interesting card. I don't know if it'll find a place in finalizing deck lists. However, I think this card is very interesting. For hand traps, we're on a triple Skullmeister, triple Ash Blossom, triple Ghost Ogre, and triple Effect Failure with hand trap prevention tools of triple Tack and Called By. In the extra, we're on Zebufera, Valmonician Hallow Heathen. This card during our opponent's turn allows us to quick effect banish spells and traps from our graveyard, or rather just target the spells and traps in graveyard and copy the effects. It also allows us to target banished ones too, so even if we banish them with our Angelo or Demono, we can still access those ones, so this one's very powerful. And if a card we control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, we can remove 3 counters from a scale instead. So this card kind of does a lot, and this is the main card we want to actually be ending on, especially when we're going first. This is our main OTK tool though, Duralume, Valmonician Heathen Hallow. Needs any effect monster, cannot be linked summoned unless you have 3 more resonance counters on a fairy monster card in your pen zone. You can only special summon it once per turn, and once per turn if this is link summoned, we can target monsters our opponent controls up to a number of resonance counters in our pen zone and pop those. So if you remember our Angelo effect, where we can link summon our opponent's turn. If we have 3 counters on this and we choose to link summon, we can then immediately summon into Duralume, and then pop at least 3 cards on the field, because in order to summon this, we need to have 3 counters on our Angelo. So this card is quite good. This card that's not the end of it. We can remove 3 resonance counters from a pen zone to make this card make up to 3 attacks during each battle phase this turn. So you can see with that little minor stat boost with creation, this can immediately become an OTK, but we have an even better card in our extra deck you'll see in a moment. We're on 1 early, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Varar Valmonican Concord. He has 2 monsters, including a Valmonica Link, unaffected by card effects except for Valmonica cards. We have 6 or more resonance counters on our field. Gains 1 additional attack during each battle phase for each level 4 Valmonica we control. And once per turn, when your opponent would special summon a monster, if you have 3 resonance counters on your field, quick effect, you negate the special summon, and if you destroy that monster, and then remove 3 counters. So it's like a Solemn Warning. It's like a Towers. This card's a lot. Like, it does a lot for the deck. It's a Towers. It's a negate. It's Battle Trick. Like, it's very interesting. And we are playing 2 of this. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn, 1 copy of White Woman Jumpscare for cards that we can theoretically not out. 1 copy of number 60, Dugaris the Timeless, allowing us to attach 2 materials, target a monster, double the attack of it, and then skip our next battle phase. So if we double our Duralume, putting it to 5,000 attack, and it can attack 3 times, that's lethal. So we are also on 1 Dweller, 1 Evil Storm Exciton Knight, 1 Castel, and 1 Tornado Dragon for our rank 4 suite. But that's me about it for this deck. Now let's move on to our final budget deck. And then for our final budget deck, we are on Unchained Traps. I thought this was a very interesting deck. This was a deck concept before the Unchained got all the new cards. So I think it's very interesting what this deck is capable of and how little people actually know of this deck being able to be played this way. So the Unchained is an archetype of like fiends that float when destroyed by battle or card effects, and there are a lot of traps that will just positively synergize with them. So let's stop yapping and let's actually go through the card by card. Starting off with our Unchained, we're on triple Aruha, able to target a card we control, and we can't special summon for the rest of the turn except for fiends. We get to destroy the card and then special summon Aruha, and then all the Unchained monsters, for the most part, unless I mention something different, they'll have the effect where if they're destroyed by battle or card effect, we can special summon a different Unchained monster from our deck to our field. So Aruha does have that effect. We're on double copies of Sarama, able to target an Unchained card in our graveyard except for itself, setting it on our field, and then we have to pop a card we control. It can be the card we just set, although it doesn't have to be. So this card is pretty alright, so we are playing 2 copies of it, since all these cards, since they can special summon off of each other, like they're all pretty tutorable. We're on triple copies of Rakea on quick effect. While this is on field, we can target a card we control and just pop it, and then locks us into fiends, and then it has the floating effect. So this card's very interesting, but we do need to have it in conjunction with a card that benefits off of being popped. We're on 1 copy of Unchained Soul of Sharvara. During the main phase of this card's in our hand, quick effect, we can target 1 fiend or 1 face down card we control, destroy it, and if we do special summon this card, but once in the monster zone, we're locked into fiends. If this card is sent to the graveyard, we can set 1 Unchained spell trap straight from our deck to our field. Insane second effect, this card's at 1. I'd like to say for a reason, but it's also not really for a great reason, just because they wanted to hit it. Please, Konami, we can be trusted with 3 Sharvara, but this card is incredibly good in this deck, and if we could play 3, we would be, so we are playing the max copies we can, 1. We're on 1 Unchained Soul of Shiama. We can target 1 card our opponent controls, destroy it, and then we can destroy 1 card we control, destroy it, and then destroy 1 spell trap on the field. If this card is in our graveyard, we can target 1 fiend monster, 1 face down card we control, destroy it, and if we do special summon this card, we'll place it on the bottom of our deck when it leaves the field. Great way to special summon from the graveyard. It's a level 6, which is pretty important for one of our extra deck cards. This is a good ass card. We are just playing the 1 copy of it because it's very tutorable. So we are on 1 copy of Abominable Unchained Soul. We can only summon it once per turn. If a card would be destroyed by we're on 1 copy of Abominable Unchained Soul. We can only special summon it once per turn. If a card we control is destroyed by battle or card effect, we can special summon this card from our hand. If this card is special summoned, we can pitch 1 card to destroy any card on field, non-targeting. Once per turn during the end phase of this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there, was on the field and sent there this turn, we can special summon this card but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. Interesting card. It's a little bit dated as of right now. It's a little bit like weird, but the non-targeting destruction is still incredibly strong. It's a big bungus and it's an Unchained Soul, which actually matters for this deck pretty, like, interestingly enough. We're on one Unchained Soul of Disaster. It just has a stat buff when it's destroyed by battle or card effect. We can target one Unchained monster in our graveyard and special summon it. So unlike the deck, this one special summon graveyard. But it also has the on-field effect where you can target one face-up monster our opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon a Dark Link monster using only this card and that card. So it's like a neat little version of Relinquished Anima, but instead of eating it up, we just get to immediately use it as a link material. So it's a White Woman before White Woman. We're on triple copies of Abomination's Prison. It's a Rhoda card for Unchained, but if it's set and it's popped, we get to add we get to special summon an Unchained from deck. We're on one Wailing of the Unchained Souls. If we link summon an Unchained Link monster, we can target a card on field, destroy it, and if this set card is destroyed by battle or card effect, by card effect, it can be destroyed by battle, we can special summon one Unchained monster from our deck. So all the Unchained traps are also going to have that special summon from deck clause, so I'm just not going to mention it from coming in the future now. We're on triple copies of Chamber of the Unchained. We can special summon an Unchained from our hand or graveyard. If it's destroyed, we can special summon one. And then we're on triple Escape of the Unchained. This is like an Icarus attack. Target an Unchained monster we control and a card on field. Destroy both. Really great easy effect. We're on, this is the main reason why I wanted to build this deck. We're on triple copies of Trap Tracks. We can target one monster we control, destroy it, and if we do, set one normal trap directly from our deck, except for itself. It can be activated this turn, and we can only activate one trap card for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. This is Trap Trick, but we get to destroy a card we control as well. So it's slightly different than Trap Trick, but this card is very good for Unchained specifically, since all the monsters love being destroyed. So this card is very strong, especially if we're trying to control the game. We're on one copy of Absolute King Backjack. This is more here for our Fiend Griefing. Double copies of Destructive Daruma Karmakin. If we're going to be playing good traps, we want to be playing 2 copies of them at least, so we can banish one off of Trap Track to add the other one. However, this one doesn't banish it like Trap Trick does, so instead of like banishing one like Trap Trick, we just get to do it multiple times, which is the main upside of this card. We are on, so again, double Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, since for our main deck cards, it doesn't really affect them too much. It will affect our links, however, if we see it in our hand, we can construct our board in such a way where it won't really hurt us too much. Triple copies of Dimensional Barrier, since it's tutorable off of Trap Trick, and it's so good against so many decks. Triple copies of Fiend Griefing, target a monster in our opponent's graveyard, shuffling it into deck, and then sending a Fiend monster from deck to graveyard. Really powerful against Fiend Smith, as well as able to send Absolute King Backjack with during our opponent's turn. Quick effect, we can banish this card from the graveyard, excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal trap, send it to our field. Otherwise, send it to the graveyard. That set card can be activated this turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and arrange them in whatever way you want. So Backjack is very powerful paired with Fiend Griefing, or if we have a way to get it to graveyard. So this is a pretty self-explanatory combo where we can go Fiend Griefing to shuffle something our opponent needs back, send Backjack, organize the top 3, put the thing we want the most, like the trap card on top, and then our starter on the right below it. Then our opponent's turn, we can go Backjack, banish, set the card, and then we can immediately activate it, and we've fixed our draw. We're on double Ice Dragon's Prison, really powerful in this format in my opinion. Double Infinite Permanence, at least there's a hand trap, and double different dimension ground. You might think, oh, our cards need to be destroyed and sent to graveyard to activate. They actually don't. We can destroy them and banish them, and they still get the trigger. So it doesn't actually hurt us too much. So we are just playing the 2 copies because it's tutorable and can hurt our opponent a lot more than it hurts us. In our extra, we're on triple Unchained Soul of Rage, very similarly to Soul of Disaster. This one on your opponent's turn can quick effect link off using a special summon monster they control. It is destroyed by battle or card effect. We can target a Fiend in our graveyard and add it back to our hand. We're on double Unchained Soul Lord of Yama, the best link monster in this deck. It's the new one, 2 Fiends. If this card special summon, we can add an Unchained monster from deck or graveyard to hand. If a card we control is destroyed by battle or card effect, well, this is in our graveyard, we can banish this card, special summon 1 Fiend monster from our hand or graveyard, and then destroy a card we control. That destroy isn't an optional effect, so we don't actually have to, but this card is crazy, being able to add, pop, reborn, it does everything. We're on double Unchained Soul of Anguish. This one's the same as Rage, where it can add back a thing if it's destroyed, but instead of linking off quick effect on our opponent's turn, it's an ignition effect during our turn. And then lastly, for our last Unchained card, really, we're on one Abomination, and these 2+ monsters, including a link. If a card on the field is destroyed by a card effect, except for Unchained Abomination, We can target one card on field and destroy it. When another monster is destroyed by a battle, we can target one card on field and destroy it. And during the end phase, we can target one card on field and destroy it. So this card destroys up to 3 cards per turn. Insane effect. We are playing just the one copy just because we know we're always going to have access to it since we aren't playing like something like Extravagance. Run 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Muckracker from the Underworld, because Reborn are fiends, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, it's a Fiend Dark, so we can special summon in this off of Solar Rage, so this is our best target since we don't really have the budget for SP. 1 Access Code Talker for OTKs, and then run 1 DDD Stone King Darius. We can use 2 3s to make this, which is any of our Unchained mini ones. And the main idea is to play this so we can make Divisor King Deus Machinex, because the other card we're playing is Wave High King Caesar, which you can just make with Sharvara and Shiama, and this is just a really good card in of itself. So Machinex is also a good card we can make by putting it either on top of Caesar or on top of Stone King Darius. And this is just a little budget option that you could potentially play in your deck instead of SP Little Knight. But that's going to be about the end of this video and about the end of this deck profile. This deck is rounding out to around 89-63. All of these decks have been lower than 100, so please, if you did like this video, please make sure to leave a like. Thank you for our 1 channel member. Thank you, Ari, for your support, and I will be seeing all of you later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh! Players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh! And the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or 2 before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.